Gardner. I'm the sales manager here at Untangle, and we'll be discussing Untangle 101, Get Control of Your Network using Untangle. We really appreciate you taking the time. We know a lot of people have registered, and to answer the questions we've received so far, we will be recording this webinar and then posting it on our site, but also sending out a recorded link for you to be able to watch it within 24 hours using the GoToMeeting, and hopefully that will be helpful for you to be able to review. Today is going to be a little bit like drinking water out of a fire hydrant, so please be patient. I'll try and keep it fairly high level so that we can make sure that everyone has a decent understanding of what we're talking about with Untangle, but also there's a lot of information that is available on our website. So we want you to make sure that you take advantage of the many wiki pages, our forums, and a lot of the videos and webinars we already have posted. So please make sure you take advantage of that stuff. As far as the webinar format itself, if you're having a problem hearing, please let us know. You can also ask questions. We have several staff members that are going to be fielding questions on the question and answer panel on the right-hand side. Certainly let us know if we do need to slow down a little bit, and we do realize that sometimes there is a little bit of a lag between the audio and the actual presentation. So I'll try to, take my time, but also make it impactful for you and make sure that you can follow along. We've got a couple cool things that we want to go over today about what Untangle has to offer, and so hopefully that will be of value to you. As far as the agenda today, we want to kind of give you an idea of what we think the Untangle solution is and how that fits into the modern day network control and networking solutions that are out there. We'll give you kind of a product comparison with the different feature sets that Untangle provides and where you can find more information about that on our website. That way you can decide how you want to deploy Untangle yourselves, as well as the different features that you can use that we have to offer. I'll be doing a brief review of the new features in 9.4, where you can find information about those, as well as some further looking at those, like the captive portal in the demonstration. And then we'll talk about some of the resources available to you in addition to the demonstration we're going to be giving you today. But again, feel free to ask questions. We have several people answering those questions on the website. And if we don't have time to bring those into the conversation or to the presentation, please make sure that you send us those questions over to sales@untangle.com, and we'll do our best to get those answered for you and make sure you have all the information you need to make an informed decision about whether Untangle is right for you and your organization. As far as the mantra or the idea behind Untangle, there's a lot of people in the small business world that are trying to figure out how to manage their network, and things over time have continued to get more and more complex. And as different needs have needed to be filled, the different levels of adoption have taken place. And the old way of, you need a solution, you get a box, becomes very cumbersome, and it also becomes very expensive. And a lot of people are experiencing this as they have progressed through managing their networks. And then, of course, you have new threats and new applications that come along. And many IT managers or directors or system administrators feel like the little guy that's on fire there. And certainly that can be a lot to keep in check, as well as control, when you have a small business and a limited budget and limited staff to be able to do all the things you might need to do in order to keep up with technology. Well, what Untangle has done is we've tried to simplify this and make it easy for you. So Untangle, inside each Untangle, there's a virtual server rack that we're going to show you in the actual demonstration. Whereas if you need a new feature, you can actually download it into the rack. And with that, you can actually deploy different things. Some of these items don't have a file server, but we do have most of these other items here: web filtering, reporting, user monitoring, and phishing. And then, of course, as new threats come along, the joy of having a product like Untangle, we actually can push those out to boxes that are already in play, and so give you additional features that you would want to be able to use in your network without a huge amount of, oh, I have to install a whole new product or a new box. Whereas with Untangle, it can be just a new application module that we've added. So over the years, we've actually added quite a few different things, and I'm sure we're going to be adding more things over time as well. So, as far as the where to install Untangle, the most common way that Untangle is installed is on the left. You can see that if you're a customer or a prospective customer of Untangle and you already have a router firewall in place, Untangle can be easily inserted behind that router firewall before the next network switch. And there's some documentation that I'll show you briefly on the site here in a minute. But that's the most common way we're deployed. And so that what happens after the support or the actual subscription agreement you have with that particular router firewall vendor, then if that's expired, then you can actually take Untangle and push it up the stack to where it actually handles the routing and firewalling for you. And so there's a lot of flexibility there, especially if you already have someone else, another vendor that you might be using. But as far as what makes Untangle different, a lot of the other vendors that we compete against do something called application proxy chaining. And you'll notice that these blue boxes are the application proxies. And as data comes in, the actual data has to be made runnable on the run queue. And so that has to create a context switch and a buffer copy of that data, send it to the CPU, and then what happens is it's sent, after the scanning is done, it's sent on to the next application proxy. Well, unfortunately, most vendors, what they'll do is they actually discard that, the thread in the process that's just been running on the run queue. And so as you have more and more application proxies doing different things to the data as it comes in, and you can see the context switches and buffer copies of the data actually increase. And so you can actually get, on an average load, where the queue wait, the run queue wait is about 20 milliseconds. If you've got 4 context switches with 4 different application proxies, that can easily jump up to 80 milliseconds. And so it can really easily get out of control depending on what you're doing with your network. With Untangle, what we've actually done is we use a technology called virtual pipelining. And what that means is we actually take the data and we send it or vector it to the layer 7. And then we decrypt the packets, or we actually scan the packets at layer 7 and make the data itself threadless so it can be runnable itself on the run queue. And then we send it to the different application modules that Untangle has, and then we recreate the packet on the back end. And you'll notice here that with this functionality, we actually keep your latency overhead very low. And this is even with 4 application proxy or application modules. And obviously with what we're going to show you in just a minute, you can see that we have quite a few more than just 4. So that's one of the things that really differentiates Untangle between us and other vendors, is the more things and features you turn on with another vendor, the worse the latency gets. Now, as far as the different feature sets that we offer, we have an Untangle platform, or our light package, that's available for free. That's something you can use forever. We also have our standard package and our premium package, and they include things like live support or directory connector. And we'll showcase some of these in the demonstration. Just because of lack of time, we won't be able to go through everything. But there's a place on our website that I'll show you. And let me jump to it. And you can actually see there's a comparison page on the site. This is just clicking on the software packages, or you can click on compare packages on our website. And this is kind of an overview, a high-level overview. But if you scroll down, you can actually see the package comparison by applications. And one thing to note is each of these is a link on the left. So if you were to click on Virus Blocker, it's going to take you to the portion of our website that explains a little bit more about the Virus Blocker. You can see an overview. You can even see some tech notes and some links to our wiki and forums. And you can really get an idea of what this particular module is actually going to do for you. As far as getting back to the presentation here, whoops, wrong link. There we go. There's also a bunch of other things included in our premium package that we do offer a spam blocker there. We offer WAN balancing and WAN failover. So if you have more than one internet service provider connection, then Untangle can actually balance your outbound traffic requests to those different ISPs, as well as fail over to one or the other, or if you have multiples, it can fail over to the connections that are still open. In addition, we can actually help you to control the bandwidth that you're actually using and to prioritize and deprioritize that based on applications or services that are important to you as a network admin or system admin. Certainly you want to increase the availability and the priority of Salesforce traffic or something that's a business critical application or solution, as opposed to people going to Facebook or using BitTorrent. In addition, you can actually do web cache for things like Windows updates if you're trying to make sure that all the machines on your network are updated. And additionally, we have a virus blocker that is above and beyond the virus blocker that comes with our free product. So there's quite a few different things. You know, web filtering and application control are key in identifying what's going on your network and what your users are doing with the internet when they should be working. So there's a lot of different things that we can actually cover today. So as far as the kind of review of what 9.4 brought to the table with the additional features, we can actually go to our documentation and go to the change logs real quick. And you'll see here, and you can do the same thing again offline and learn a little bit further about these things. But you can see we had some updates on the new icons where we updated the icons. There's a new host table, which I'll show you in just a minute. There's also a new session viewer where you can actually view real-time sessions about what's going on the network and what Untangle knows about that information. In addition, we've actually rewritten our captive portal, which I'll describe that a little bit when I get into the actual administrative interface. But this changelog area is a good place to look for what's the latest thing in the new version. And certainly we've made some good improvements on the back end of Untangle, as we're continually trying to do. So without further ado, let's just jump into the Untangle administrative interface. You can see that it's basically a virtual server rack. And if you haven't had a chance to do so, if you want to play with it yourself, I wouldn't recommend you all do it at the same time, but you can come to our homepage here and click on this Try a Live Demo, and that will give you an opportunity to drive around in an actual live server, basically get a feel for what that actual interface feels like, and when you're actually looking at it, how you navigate. But the virtual server rack is divided up into several different sections. The top section here, you've got information about our rack system, where we have a default rack. I created a secondary rack called a student rack, which is typically my home office here. It's my children. But you have the ability to create more than one rack using our policy manager that applies to different sets of users. And you can actually set up different policies that apply to them. And then I'll show you a little bit further about that. But as far as the actual virtual server rack, we have the top half of the rack here is application modules. Those application modules can be configured for different sets of users. The services section, though, this is basically going to be a global setting for everyone that sits behind the Untangle. And so obviously these application modules, you can set them up to be separately configured, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. But the services, these are things like Directory Connector, Policy Manager, that are basically going to apply to all the sets of users that sit on the inside of Untangle. You got your VPN access and some other things like configuration backup. And the ability to brand Untangle. You can actually replace this logo, and on the report screen, you can also change it to whatever logo you want on the block screen as well. There's a lot of different features available. You can see we've got some tickers here, and you can decide what you want this data to actually be reflecting. So if I were to click on it, it gives me a bunch of options to look at the current session for this particular module. And if I wanted to, I could actually update this and add different columns. So if I wanted to add additional data that I want to show, I can do that. That's kind of part of our session viewer, but you can also do it by individual application modules. You can also change this here if you want to see different things on the actual counters. So we've got some different options for you to do. And just like in a regular server rack, if you turn off a module, then it's actually not going to be functioning. So it just reminds you, hey, the power button's off, and so this application is actually not going to be doing anything. And there's different features and sets. You know, you can even leave it installed but have it not turned on, and it's the same thing as not having it installed at all. As far as how you install things, basically once you get the Untangle up and running, there's a startup wizard you'll go through. And there are going to be several different button options here on the left underneath apps. But really it's a matter of you clicking the button and then actually having it install itself into the rack. And some of them require you to do some configuration on them before it will let you configure it, and some won't. So you'll just have to, there's certain items like OpenVPN, for example, you have to configure it before it'll let you to turn it on. But you also have just as easy of a time removing it from the rack. And so it makes it so it's fairly easy for you to manage as far as the different pieces and parts of Untangle. And for you system admins, you could actually come up here and see your transfer and your receive speeds, your upload and download speeds. You can actually see how many sessions Untangle is currently managing or seeing. You can also see what the CPU load is. It tells you how many processors Untangle is recognizing in the server you put us on, as well as the load averages across, 1, 5, and 15 minutes, and then the uptime. You can also see your RAM usage, your memory usage, and your swap files. You have also the ability to see how much disk space is available on your hard drive and what your read-writes are looking like. So there's a lot of information you can see just right from the actual server rack itself. You can even go into the networking section. Unlike most other vendors who try to call that firewalling, Untangle actually takes the tack that really networking is networking, so let's call it that. And you can see that there's different things you can set up in here. I've got a dynamic connection to my internet provider. You can set up your static IPs based on different things like the IP address mask you want. And then, of course, if you have external IP addresses that you want to have Untangle listen for, then you can put in IP address aliases for those public IPs so that they can then be routed down to the right location in your network. Additionally, you can do port forwards. We've got a bunch of sample ones in here, so just as an example. You can create these rules fairly easily, and you can add different conditions for the rules, and you can decide what local host that's going to go to. All sorts of things that you can do within the Untangle architecture. As far as the host name, say you don't have a public static IP address. Well, you can actually sign up for a dynamic DNS service. There's quite a few out there. You've got EasyDNS all the way down to DNS Park. And so it gives you the option to make it so that your network is easily reachable without having to pay for the additional cost of a public IP address. Also, Untangle can act as a DHCP server if you don't have something else doing that. Obviously, if we're in bridge mode, you probably have something else doing the actual DHCP for you. You can see the MAC address static addresses I've assigned on my network, and of course the current DHCP entries that are showing. You've got your DNS connections here. If the Untangle needs to be the DNS server, you can do that. And then of course you've got a bunch of troubleshooting tools, anything from a connectivity test to ping test. Maybe you need to do a trace route. Untangle can actually help you to do that from the actual admin interface of Untangle. Now when you install Untangle as well, let's jump over here. When you install the Untangle as well, we have several options for you. Let me jump back. You can actually decide how you want to deploy Untangle. So the first question really is, well, do I want to get an appliance, like we've got listed here? Got a bunch of different appliances here, and the specifications for those. Or do I want to roll my own hardware? And we've got some sizing guidance for you if you want to use your own hardware to roll Untangle. And it gives you some pretty decent specifications here. And if you need some more granular, if you try to figure out whether you want to install Untangle as a router, this gives you kind of an actual diagram to go off of for the router mode versus the bridge mode. There's lots of resources for you that are available. There's even a quick start guide here you can click on. And you can go down further to our documentation of the Untangle Wiki, as we've been to before. And if you go down to the bottom of our website here, you can see there's actually a hardware compatibility list. So you can pick and see if there's a piece of hardware on here that we've already had somebody tell us works. So there's lots of options for you to choose from when it comes to running Untangle. As far as the actual management, there's a couple of features I want to make sure we touch on. One of them, which is that we kind of already showed you slightly, is the Policy Manager. And with Policy Manager, what you can do is create these additional racks like we talked about before, but you can decide when those racks will apply. And you can see, again, this is a home office, so I manage my entire network. And my son told me last night that my daughter was watching Netflix until midnight. So I've got a little rule here that I have disabled that I need to re-enable. So the source addresses for the network devices on the network. And again, you can make this anything. You can do it from anything from destination address down to the actual client operating system. Anything that's, say maybe you have somebody that's, if you have a quota set up in our bandwidth control module, you can actually have the captive portal pop up and apply a certain policy based on those people that have exceeded their quota that you've allowed. In any case, what I need to do with this particular one from midnight, or from 9:30 to midnight, I need to go ahead and just enable this rule so that my daughter won't be watching Netflix way too late on a school night. And so now she won't be able to get to Netflix after 9:30. But there's lots of different options you have in the Policy Manager. You can make different racks, call them whatever you'd like. You can also have them related to each other. So you can create a parent rack like I have. The default rack is kind of the rack that everything else refers to. And again, if I were to go down here and select the student rack, you can see I only have a couple of modules in the application module section that are actually highlighted. And that's because they're slightly different in my configuration than the actual default rack is. But anything I haven't configured, it will actually refer to the default rack to get its rules and its blocking and the filtering that it's doing. And you'll notice there's a couple of other things. So with the application control, this is a module that's very, very useful for a lot of different reasons. But the application control module, you can see here on this particular rack, I've got every application protocol blocked. So you can see why that I have this applying at certain times of day. So regardless of what my kids are trying to do, whether it's BitTorrent or Facebook or Netflix or Google, it doesn't matter. I have the ability to actually stop them cold in their tracks, which, of course, as you can probably guess, they love. But it gives you the control as the network admin or system admin for the network to be able to control everything, even from Skype to UltraSurf. So if you wanted to create specific rules, we've got some UltraSurf rules in here. And UltraSurf was a product that was developed to get around the Chinese firewall. And so Untangle has the ability to even stop that one. So there's lots of different options you have in application control. In addition to being able to stop it and or to flag it, it actually is just identifying traffic on the network. So you'll be able to see at a glance in the session viewer that I'll show you in just a minute what's actually happening right now on the network. And this tar pit feature is kind of cool because what the tar pit does, let me actually show you another cool thing. Inside the Untangle admin interface, there's all these help buttons that you'll see. When you click the help button, it's going to take you to the section of our online manual, our wiki, that talks about the particular page that you're looking at. So it's all contextual based. And that will basically make it so it's a lot easier for you to kind of learn more about a particular place inside Untangle. But you can see here that the tar pit, what that does, it's basically kind of a special kind of blocking. So it makes it appear that both the client and the server, that they're receiving data, but there's no data that's actually transmitted. So some of your network admins are probably rubbing your hands together now because when you have students that are going to BitTorrent or to different torrent in the cloud, then you're kind of stuck as to trying to figure out how to block them or stop them. Well, the tar pitting feature, in addition to being able to just block or flag it, the tar pitting is kind of nice because it stops them without actually letting them know they're being stopped. There's just no data that's transmitted. So it's very nice. So in addition to that, let's jump over to the web filtering. And you'll see we have here the ability to block HTTPS by IP address, and that basically will sync up with the URL database we have in the cloud. The Untangle web filtering itself is quite a bit more robust than other web filters out there. We have 450 million URLs that have been classified and categorized in 140 plus categories. And that basically is quite a bit larger than most of the other vendors that we compete against. That includes WebSense, that includes M86, that includes Barracuda and Checkpoint. Take your pick. Untangle is quite a bit larger as far as the web filtering database we use. And in addition to that, we actually are able to block unknown sites through a dynamic intelligent architecture where it will actually categorize websites that are unknown, obviously outside of that 450 million, and it will actually categorize them on the fly. And in addition to that, we actually support up to 200 different languages as far as URL categorization goes. So even if they try to go to a different language, you should be able to categorize it correctly. A couple of other features that are fairly cool. We actually support YouTube for schools. And so inside the actual interface, you'll see here that if you're going to enforce YouTube for schools, you actually have to have created your own YouTube for Schools identifier with YouTube directly. And once you've done that, then what you can do is actually take the policy you created on YouTube and enforce it for the entire network that you have. And again, that could be for schools. It could even be for parents if you want to make sure that kids are not going to something on the actual web on YouTube, which can be traditionally difficult to actually filter. Then you can actually set up a little profile, add the classification or identifier there, and that will append it to any requests that go over to YouTube. In addition, you can actually enforce safe search on popular search engines like Google and Yahoo, so that if they try to go to content on the search engine that maybe is categorized differently because they have large databases they have to algorithmically categorize, then you can actually enforce the safe search on that. In addition, if you wanted to actually have a password bypassed, so maybe you go to a particular content page and they want to get to that page, but you want to make sure you see it. I'll give you an example here. We've got CNN blocked as just a test on our site here, so you can see what it looks like when a page is actually blocked. We have a password bypass option here, so if I type in the password to get to this particular content, it will unblock it, and I believe it does block it for, or unblock it for, I believe it's 30 minutes to 60 minutes by default, and then you can adjust that according to your desire. But it also is based on the content category, too. So this is specifically CNN. So if I were to go to some other news site that's not blocked, then you'd see. If we just go to MSNBC, you'll see that I haven't blocked that particular news site. It was just CNN that I'd blocked. Anyway, so that's basically a little bit more about the web filtering. And go to the actual category list. You can see here we've got a large list where you can block and flag. There's also a description that we've provided for you. If you want to modify those, all you have to do is click on them and change them. As far as what you want to do, that's really customized. There's a default set that's blocked and flagged, but you can actually adjust that when you get in there to review it. And so there's a lot of different options you have the ability to change. You can also add specific sites if you want to, and this one is the asterisk is block everything. So that's where this time to go to bed category comes from, or description. And then of course you can block everything that's specific file types. And you can see that we've got quite a few different file types listed. And it gives you the option to select them. If you wanted to add a specific file type, you could do that. You also have the ability to block different MIME types, which is a little bit more specific. And if you need to know a little bit more what is a MIME type, then you can come here to the help. And it gives you a lot of information about these different things. So you can see what they are and why would you want to block them. But there's a lot of different information available for you to use. Now, one of the things we kind of talked about briefly was the fact that you can use bandwidth control So let's talk just a quick minute about that. I'm going to go back to the default rack. When you configure bandwidth control, there's actually a little bandwidth control wizard you come in and you run. You can decide if I have more than one WAN connection, I can run different iterations of this as well. And if I had more than one different policy as well, I can actually apply a different bandwidth policy to different virtual server racks inside Untangle, or different groups of people. So if I were to come in here and run this, you can notice that there's some warnings here that web filter, only the pay-for web filter is going to basically be applied here. And then application control as well. You come through, you tell it how fast your internet connection is based on the kilobits per second. And then, of course, it's suggested to be as accurate as possible. And then you come through and decide what kind of configuration you want to go with. So we've got a business configuration. It gives you kind of an option there, lets you know a little bit more about what some of the default settings are going to do. You actually can do a school configuration, which is going to be slightly different, but you can see it's heavily limiting BitTorrent usage. Or, you know, if it's a home environment, you can see that it's actually not deprioritizing gaming, obviously, because that's where most times modern games are played. But there's all sorts of different options you have. You have metered internet, you can also do that as well. But once you have that set up, then you can come here and you can actually enable quotas if you'd like. The default is 1 gig. At Untangle's offices, we have a 100 gig limit. And you can decide when that quota expires. You can have it be the end of the week, or end of the day, or end of the hour. So if you wanted to severely limit your students or the people on your network based on what you're going to allow them to do every hour, then you can do that. And then you can decide what their actual priority for traffic is going to be if they exceed their quota. In other words, what happens to them. Say you set up a quota and you just want to let them know that there's a quota or that they've exceeded it. I'll show you what that means or how to do that in just a minute. You actually come to our captive portal feature. And the captive portal is very cool in the fact that you can actually set it up so that you can create capture rules. Now this particular rule that I've set up is just so that my Android phone that I have sitting next to me will be captured. But you can set it up so that it can be based off of anything. So you could say, I want the captive portal to show up only if the client has exceeded the quota. And if it has, then it'll send them a little, it'll show up a captive page, which I'll show you in just a minute. Hey, you've exceeded your quota, just so that you can put them on notice that they're in that bucket. But if you are managing the captive portal, you can create the captive page. You can decide if it's going to be just a basic message. You can check this box here to require them to check a box to agree to your terms and conditions of usage or your acceptable use policy, which you can paste here. You can also send other different messages. You know, here's the agree text. You can also do a redirect if maybe you're a hotel or a business and you want to redirect them after they've logged into the captive portal. You want to redirect them to your home page. You can do that. But again, the help button is very helpful here, so you can always click the help. You can see the difference between the basic message, the basic login, and whether you want to have a custom page. Maybe you want to gather some more information about them. And the custom pages, we've even got some sample custom pages. Maybe you're a hotel and you want to actually make it so that they have to enter their room number in order to connect. We've got a sample here, but certainly you'd want to have your own developer working to make it so that that page is what you want it to be. And then here's a little bit of a notification. This is for experienced web developers comfortable with HTML, Python, and JavaScript. Untangle won't be able to help you with that stuff. But we're giving you some custom page examples that you can take so you can understand the logic strings and that kind of thing. So that should be helpful for you. As far as the user authentication, you have the ability to do a local directory like I've got here, or you can actually do a radius server, or if you're going to do Active Directory, you can do that as well. That's part of our directory connector. So you can come here, put in your Active Directory information, your fully qualified domain name, and you can actually run an Active Directory logon script for those machines that are actually part of the actual domain. So there's a lot of different options you have in order to be able to monitor and keep track of who's doing what and what machines they're using. And maybe you want to create a captive portal rule that's based on a capture rule that says, well, okay, if I don't know who they are, then I want to have them log into the captive portal. So I come here and I say, okay, if the username, go ahead and click out of that. So if it is not this, whoops, custom value, there we go. So if I go there and I say, if the custom username is not an asterisk, meaning if it's not known, that's when I want to apply the capture rule and make it so that they actually then have to identify themselves. And again, you can have them authenticate against Active Directory. Even if they're using an Apple iPhone or an iPad, you can still have them enter their user credentials based on that. And so there's quite a few different options you have when it comes to creating these different capture rules. As far as the user authentication, let me just show you what it looks like in here when I log in using my cell phone, if I can remember my login, because I've got my cell phone connected to the captive port or to the Wi-Fi that I have on the network. And you'll see that if we go to status and we click refresh, there's the Android phone that I just connected with. And it gives you some information about it. If I had an actual quota for them, it would show me some additional information about that. You got your rule ID, your timestamp, your client address, your port address, and the servers. And then also you can see the actual user event log, login success, whether I'm authenticating to a local directory. So there's a lot of different information that you can actually pull down based on the captive portal itself. And of course, if I wanted to just turn that off, I just disable the rule, hit OK, and then we should be good. Whoop. Let's put none. And then I can actually just come here too and just shut it off if I want. So there's quite a few different options you have available to you. And the bandwidth control module is kind of cool because you can use the captive portal as well as the application control, the web filtering. When you set these different rules up, if you remember correctly, I set up a home setup. And so I can actually go in and evaluate these different rule sets and make sure that they're what I want. So if the server is in penalty box, I can action type set the priority to limited severely. Well, what if I don't know what limited severely means? Well, then I can go to the help, and I can actually see what the different priorities are. So if I have a very high, high, medium, low, limited, limited more, limited severely, anything that's a very high to low is actually going to get precedence over anybody that's in the lesser categories, the limited or limited severely. And essentially what that means is when you go to these different rule sets, it's going to make it so that when they have the QoS priorities set up inside Untangle, if it's limited severely, they're only going to be able to ever use up to 10%. But they're always going to be trumped by some other higher priority. So you can actually do quite a few different things with the bandwidth control module, both prioritizing and deprioritizing if you want to further make it granular as opposed to just using the wizard we offer. And certainly you can see a bunch of statistics. Now with that, let's jump into the actual session viewer. So you can actually see this is real-time information based on the network. We can see a bunch of data here, whether it's traffic is bypassed, what policy rack's being applied. You can see my Android phone is the host name for that it's recognizing. We can scroll over a little bit farther. You can see what IP address it is. You can also see maybe I want to add a column. The username is showing because I actually logged in. But maybe I want to add something else. Maybe I want to see what the application control category is, or the web filter category. So you'll see that the category name was added. And this is all based on information that's happening right now on the network. Okay, so there's quite a few different things in the session viewer that you can actually take a look at real time. And if you want to do it by host, you can even create captive portal rules that only apply to certain types of hosts. So if I'm looking at the host list here, you can see we've got this 1.9 address. Let me just log into my daughter's Chromebook so you can see what that looks like when that connects. And let's just start this session here. Refresh that session there, and then we'll refresh. And so you'll see that the machine she's using is this CROS, which is a Chrome indicator. You can see my phone as well as this machine, which is my laptop that I'm actually using. And so you can actually set up rules that are based on what type of OS it's using, if in fact it knows what it is. And a lot of these browsers will actually identify themselves when you actually have a browser session going. So there's a lot of information. I don't know if we have any questions that have come up that maybe you want to address for everyone. I think that's probably used up all the time we have for the actual demonstration, but certainly we can cover a bunch of other things if we had time. Jump back to the presentation here. As far as some of the resources that we have available to you, we've got some package comparison, which I've referenced, the wiki. You can download a trial today at the untangle.com/download. And then, of course, if you need to contact us, you can get all of us at that 800 number or sales@untangle.com. Or certainly you can find us on forums, the YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook by going to the community link that's listed there. Are there any questions we want to field for everyone, Katie? If you're talking, I think you're probably muted, so I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I was muted. We've had multiple questions come through. I don't know if there's many that we want to ask out in the open, but we're filing through those right now, so hold on one second.
Okay. Well, we really appreciate your time today. Certainly, hopefully, this has given you a decent overview or a decent picture of what Untangle has available for you to use. My favorite thing on our website is this logo here, this Your Network, Your Rules, and because really that's what it comes down to when it comes to the connectivity you are offering to employees or students, or even at your home. Your children need to be aware that you're actually the one paying the bills and you're in the control. And as businesses, you want to make sure that those employees understand that, yeah, you might let them bring in their own device, but you're going to control what they are allowed to do on that device when they're connected to your network. So it's definitely important to keep in mind and also make sure that you have a good acceptable use policy in place and use something, use a tool like Untangle to control that and to manage those users and what they can and can't do. Well, I think we pretty much used up all of our time. And certainly if you have further questions, we definitely want to make sure we get those questions answered. If you don't get it answered on the webinar, feel free to send it over to sales@Untangle and we'll get it answered as well. And feel free to give us a call. We're more than happy to talk with you. We appreciate your attendance today, and hopefully you'll have a great rest of the afternoon, evening, or good night, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you, everyone. We're going to go ahead and close off today.